This will be a movement guide for both new and returning players to Warzone 3. We're going to cover all kinds of different things because the game has changed in a lot of ways, whether it's how slide canceling works, whether it's how the aim down sight while sliding works and how you can incorporate that in your gameplay, how the various zips have changed, whether it's on the edge of a building or a redeploy balloon. We're going to cover all these different things and kind of explain the nuances of them so you know how and when to use them and when they're going to be more effective or less effective for you in different situations. If you want to practice any of this stuff in a private match, you would want to make sure you put on the overkill vest with the tactical pads, and that pretty much gives us 3 out of the 4 perks. The only one we'd be missing is the climbing boots. So I've loaded into ground war primarily because I have a stamina bar, and I want to go ahead and kind of explain how the stamina bar works with movement because this isn't available in Warzone as a visual. Hopefully they added in later on, even though it exists the same way. So when I sprint, you can see it uses the entire tactical sprint. If I just sprint normal, it doesn't use any of that green stamina bar at the bottom. You'll notice that if I tack sprint and then I slide, you can see it stops and it waits to regenerate a little bit beforehand. If I go ahead and jump, you can go ahead and see it stops as well, and which would make you think maybe you shouldn't do any of those things. But with the way the movement works in the game, it's actually faster to traverse the map while slide canceling, and more specifically, long slide canceling for movement. So you can use slide canceling for both movement and for combat. In this specific case, we're going to be using it for movement. So we'd move it, we could slide. You actually slide pretty good distance, and then at the end of the slide, to make it a little bit faster, you're going to go ahead and implement the jump button. So to slide, it's usually the crouch button. On controls, that's going to be circle or B, and in keyboard and mouse, that's typically the C button. So you're running, you can slide, boom, and then at the end of the slide or any point in the slide, you can cancel it by pressing the jump button. So pretty much you can run, slide, and then jump, and then you can see it kind of gets you out of the animation a little bit quicker. You can go ahead and slide, jump, and the reason you want to go ahead and get the full length of the slide is because how fast you move with the slide is actually pretty good after they've made the changes. So you get actually more use of it. If you just spam it, you're going to kind of stagger your momentum. You're going to burn up all that stamina bar rather quickly. So in this case, if you want to go ahead and traverse faster, you would utilize your sprint, slide, go ahead and come out of it. Tactical sprint, slide, come out of it. You go ahead and get that sprint all the way back. You can go ahead and still slide while you're doing this. If you wanted, you still get a decent slide out of it. And then as soon as you get it back, you tactical slide. Eventually, I think they'll go ahead and modify this because I don't think they want people slide canceling as much. So hopefully we get faster regen and less things stop that refill of that bar. So now we have slide canceling for combat. If I want to go ahead and come up to here, you can go ahead and utilize this cover and slide cancel into it. And you can see I slide and then I cancel it with the jump. So slide is the crouch button into a jump. So it's actually super easy to do with this game. It's not slide, slide, jump like we had before. It is just slide, jump. Easy buttons after a sprint. And you could be regular sprinting or you could be tactical sprinting. And on top of that, slide canceling is even more fluid with the actual addition of the ADS while sliding. So with this game, we get this by default, and you can kind of see how this works. So you're going to go ahead and slide, you can ADS, and you can actually slide cancel while in ADS animation. So in this particular case, you can go ahead and run out, slide, and then I can stop it right there. You can utilize the whole slide and come all the way out. One of those could throw off the enemy. It depends on how close you are to cover. If I already know someone's around the corner here, I can go ahead and utilize this and slide out and already be pre-firing without canceling that slide. Or if I want to go ahead and kind of break the angle a little bit and maybe cause a little bit more desync, I can come up and I can actually stop the slide right at the edge of the wall. So you can actually practice both of those if you wanted. And you can see I get right to the edge of the wall where I come out. If maybe I felt like I want a corner peek, shoot, oh, I got intel, and then I can get back to cover, you can utilize that one that way. So it would be something more along the lines of here, slide, you stop, and then come back through. I saw the intel. If you're going to hard commit, you can actually go all the way through without the slide cancel. So you can actually come out and get the intel that way. And that goes kind of tied into what our next topic is, which is gathering intel. A lot of times what you want to do is you can shoulder peek like we're doing here. I see the guy up there. Maybe I would go ahead and shoot him, whatever. He's
come on.
So I go ahead and mount up, shoot that guy. But you can shoulder peek here. That guy's been missing me for the past 2 minutes here. But you can kind of shoulder peek here, get the info. The other way is like I just mentioned, you come through, You stop there, you peek back in, and then you're back into cover. You don't want to overexpose yourself. You can actually stop, get back into cover. The next one is when you have a small cover like this, you can actually crouch spam. If you go ahead and just spam crouch, which is just the crouch button, you're going to go ahead and move up and down. It'll feel like you get a little bit of fatigue or it's slow. So sometimes a little more efficiently is to crouch, and then you can actually just crouch, jump, crouch, jump, crouch, jump, crouch, jump, crouch, jump, crouch, jump. And you can kind of see you get a little bit more control over the movement. So that's kind of how the motion would be. And the reason you would do this is typically in a one-on-one, if I know someone's right here, I don't need to reposition as much. So this could be a good way to go. If the guy was up there and I had a better line of cover, I can actually peek this way and I can actually get good intel. And on their screen, I'm not up there for that long. I'm not leaving myself vulnerable. This is by far easier to do than snaking. I know people are going to comment saying snaking's super easy. For some, yes. For others, no. But if you know that there's multiple enemies, it might benefit you to snake a little bit. And snaking is involved where you're going to go ahead and go prone. So whatever your button is for prone and then back. So you go prone and back, and then you're going to attack sprint forward. And it automatically brings you up. And that's normally the combination you're going to use. So you're going to use back and then up, back and then up, back and then attack sprint forward. And you're going to do it just like that. You kind of get a rhythm, and the cue more often than not is going to be the left hand. The left hand kind of goes out to brace, and kind of when that's happening, you can come out of it and go into the attack sprint. So that's kind of how the timing works on that. So it'll be boom, and you can kind of see, as soon as the hand goes down, you can kind of get a rhythm of it. They did nerf this in Modern Warfare 3. It's still pretty good. Obviously, your timing could be a little different. And this one's great because if you put in plates, you can go ahead and kind of do that motion while you're doing that stuff. And you can kind of go through and do your plate motion while you're doing it. Especially if you have it set to auto a plate all, you could just go ahead and start the plating, and then you can get in here and all you have to worry about is snaking, you know? So that's basic info gathering, and you can utilize either just to kind of figure out how you're going to play the situation, because not every situation's one size fits all. You're going to go ahead and kind of have to adjust to the situation. A lot of times, if you're in the gulag, you might not need to do aggressive snaking because you only have a little piece of cover. Maybe it would make more sense to do crouch spam. Maybe you want to go ahead and shoulder peek because the walls are kind of tall and you don't have a half wall. So that's when you would shoulder peek. That's when you would do the slide ADS, slide cancel at the edge, peek back into cover, only to give yourself enough of your edge so that you can go ahead and get that gathering info. So you can use however much movement you want to use depending on those scenarios. As far as these next ones, these are kind of important when it comes to Battle Royale because of how many zips there are in the game. And this is the redeploy balloons or the drones or the zips that they have on the edge of buildings. There's so many of these. And in some of these cases, in the example that I'm going to give you, Mountaineer shows off why it's so good. Keeping in mind that, side note, if you fall from 13.5, 14 meters, you're going to go ahead and insta-die. If you have Mountaineer, you can go up to about 27 meters before you die. So that kind of allows you to hit the ground, get back up on the zip, and not worry about it if it is on lower ground, something like this example. So first one off is super easy, and I think this one should be utilized 100% of the time, regardless of skill level, because as you can see from the side-by-side comparisons, we have the bottom two, which are faster animations. Then the top one, you walk up to any zip, you'll use whatever your interact button is, and you can kind of see the animations a little bit slow, but the bottom two, it does the animation seamlessly with going up vertically. Saves off about a second of animation, cutting it down from about 5 seconds down to 4, which is pretty significant. If you're trying to get out of there, it's not going to be helpful in every scenario you use it, but it will optimize that extra second to you to just get up and out versus actually going up on there, then pre-aiming through the smoke. If you threw a smoke, you can kind of see how much faster that is in kind of a real-time head-to-head comparison. Bottom two, I want to kind of see if there was a difference between jumping on and then melee while jumping on. Maybe that was going to be faster, but it turned out it was the exact same, as you can see from the comparison. On top of that, they've added new mobility tech at the top of zips. If you go ahead and press back or hold back while you press jumping off of the zip at the appropriate time, it is a timing thing. It takes a little bit of practice. I probably spent about 2 minutes like, what the heck? Why doesn't this work? Before I kind of got the rhythm of it. And you can kind of see it, how it works in action, where you're able to jump up and you're actually able to fire your gun significantly faster before the other person even reaches the top of the zip and has to take themselves off, and typically is going to be dead. And this is super useful. If people have the prox mines, bouncing betties or whatever, if they have claymores or whatever the case is, or you think they're camping it, holding the angle, it gives you that little peeker advantage. Same thing like we were talking about infoing, and you can get that shoulder peek. This is essentially the shoulder peek, and you can catch some people off guard. Even if they're high skilled players, they won't expect the average player to just jump up, peek up, and already start landing shots on them. Like they come around the corner, you've done a slide cancel, or you aim down sight while you're shooting them. This is super effective. And here's actually a live match of this exact location. A top player, Metaphor, is utilizing it to kind of take on this guy that doesn't really know what the heck's going on, and then takes him out. So this is a perfect example. There's many more you can look up. And this is how I would utilize this, where you can come up and it's even smoother just in traversing the area, and it works on every zip that is attached to a building. So you come up, you can just get it, and it takes a little bit of practice. So I'd maybe take 5 minutes to learn it, and then you're probably good to go, where you're gonna have a high efficiency of using this when you go ahead and kind of climb these zips. Next movement is one of my favorite movements, and that is the drop shot. In this specific example, you're gonna go ahead and see how the drop shot is super effective. I tend to like this one just because this is what I'm accustomed to from playing Call of Duty forever. I didn't really get into hardcore bunny hopping or any of that type of hopping. I got always more into a drop shot. And there is a little bit of nuance to it. Depending on how far you are away, the movement might be better or worse. Typically, when you're close, within like 10 meters of a player, the drop shot is generally one of the best ways to knock the target off, because the way both aim assist works, visibility works, and just tracking works in general. When you drop shot under somebody's gun, they cannot see you on the screen. So literally they lose the visibility of where you are, and they have to adjust their aim to go ahead and track you. That little micro reaction is enough for you to land a couple shots, make yourself a harder target to hit for that quick second, and then you win the gunfight, hopefully by then, and then you get out of there. It's not enough always to drop shot. Sometimes, depending on the situation, it might be more beneficial to do a drop shot and then sprint out of the animation. So you kind of break away and get away from the action and then redirect. In this particular case, I kind of knew where most of these players were. So you can kind of see I drop shot and then I back off. I drop shot and then I back off. I rotate out. And I'm kind of quick with that part of it. But you can actually, depending on where your target is in positioning, basically set up your exit route, so you're not a sitting target the entire time you're doing the drop shot. So there's a couple other mobility things. We no longer really have the bunny hop. I know a lot of people will call like if just somebody's jumping, they'll call it the bunny hop, but it really kind of got nerfed into the ground with Warzone 2. I'm a fan of the bunny hop, even though I never really like went out of my way to make sure I did a ton of the bunny hop. But what you can see here is you can still kind of hop in place a little bit. You get a little bit of action, and there's two different ways you'll do this. If you're up close, the bunny hop's great because then it makes it a headshot a little bit harder to hit. And you can actually hip fire spam. And while your mobility is higher, while you're in the hip fire. If you aim down sight, you typically move a lot slower, so it's less effective. You can still bunny hop off of higher distances. Like if I fell off a building, I can actually get a little bit of a bump out of it, but nothing will ever match Warzone 1. I think they have intent to kind of improve this to make it a little bit more versatile, but right now you can kind of still use it. I wouldn't even call it a baby bunny hop. And I still think some of the other mobility options are a little bit more impactful, a little bit more effective, depending on the situation. So we'll focus on the dive now, which kind of has two main functionalities. One is to kind of get away from gunfire. So for example, in this case, if I was getting shot in the back, I can actually dive here behind cover, and then maybe I do a crouch spam, maybe I snake, and I kind of getting info, and then I go ahead and shoot the guy as they come around the corner. That's kind of the main utility with diving, is you can get kind of behind cover, and maybe I go ahead and peek the corner or something like that. That's the main one that you'll utilize it. It's not really used offensively, because even if you dive, it takes a while for your gun to come up, In a lot of instances, you'll probably be dead by the time you can fire those shots, at least if you're going against a competent person. And there's gaps like this where if you were able to dive, you can cover them, whereas normal jump wouldn't cut it. So something to make the movement feel a little bit smoother is going to be automatic tack sprint. I'm going to actually use automatic sprint to show off that it is possible to do these things. It just might require a little bit more inputs. Automatic tack sprint is just by far easier and smoother when it comes to some of these movements. To help in addition to that is to single tap sprint so that you're in control of when that is, and you can go ahead and press that in. It's as easy as one tap, so you don't have to destroy your controller. So general best practice is to go ahead and take a couple of these and start incorporating them slowly into your gameplay. And once you feel like they're at the point where they're muscle memory, you go ahead and start adding a little bit more into the repertoire. If you enjoy the content, feel free to hit the like button. See you on the next one. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.